Welcome to Esther 414 Ministries. This is Tracy, and today we're in Genesis chapter 31, verses 41 and 42, and it's a really interesting story. Listen, this is how it reads. It was like this for 20 years I was in your household. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flocks. And you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, you would have surely sent me away empty-handed. Okay, this is a story where this is Jacob talking, okay? And he's talking to his father-in-law Laban. And he's telling him how he's ripped him off over and over and over again. Laban, his father-in-law, has been tricking him and deceiving him and pulling schemes on him for over 20 years now. But let me tell you about another person who's just like Laban. It's Jacob himself. Here's the irony of it all, okay? Jacob, while he was at home with mom and dad, Jacob was a manipulator and a deceiver and a schemer. The last one he pulled, he deceived his brother and his father Isaac, and so he had to run from home before he got killed. So Jacob had to run, right? He gets to Laban's camp, all right? He sees Laban's daughter Rachel, and he is madly in love right away. He's like, this is the woman. He strikes up a deal. Jacob strikes up a deal with Laban for his daughter Rachel and says, hey, I'll work for your daughter for 7 years, okay? And so I can marry her. He says, fine, he'll do it. So Laban works Jacob like a dog for 7 long years. It's free labor. Hey, he doesn't have to pay him a dime, right? So now 7 years is up. Jacob gets to receive his bride Rachel, right? So Laban throws this huge marriage feast for Jacob and his daughter, right? And then they have lots of food and a traditional marriage ceremony with dancing and everything and drinking. But Laban goes to the excess of the drinking. He gets Jacob drunk as a skunk. Now remember, Laban is also a deceiver and a schemer and a manipulator. So let me tell you what Laban does, all right? After he gets Jacob just so drunk, Laban has another daughter, okay, that's older than Rachel, and she's just not as beautiful as Rachel. Well, she's not the one that Jacob's in love with, all right? But see, in those days, you wouldn't let the younger daughter marry before the older daughter. So Laban goes ahead and he pulls one on Jacob. What does he do? He covers Leah, his other daughter, in this big old veil where you couldn't see through it, and he sends her in to Jacob to consummate the marriage. Now Jacob thinks it's Rachel, right? And he's drunk as a skunk. All right, so now Jacob wakes up in the morning expecting to see Rachel. Who does he see? He sees Leah. Oh, what in the world? What just happened? He goes to Laban and says, what in the world are you doing? What gives here? Well, remember now, Jacob was a deceiver and a schemer. He's just never met anybody who was better than him at what he did. And Laban's like, well, I couldn't have let my older daughter not marry before my younger daughter, so I had to give you Leah first. All right, so Laban backtracks there a little bit. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you what, you work for me 7 more years and I'll give you Rachel too. Well, because Jacob was so in love with this woman, he agrees to this underhanded plan here. He knew he's being manipulated and he was scammed. He was scammed by the best, okay? Jacob was the best, or he thought he was the best, until he met Laban. All right, you're like, oh, that's a terrible story. So why are you telling me it, and how does it apply to my life? Well, let me tell you, okay? It does apply to each one of our lives. See, the Lord will bring someone into our lives with the same type of character flaws, maybe amplified, so we see them, so we will look and we'll say, that's just terrible. But the Lord, He'll look at you and He says, that's you. See, we're often blinded to our own faults. We're very forgiving for ourselves, right? But with other people, we're very critical, right? We're quick to pick up on a flaw in somebody else. So the Lord has to bring that person into our lives with this amplified flaw so we will see what God sees. Once we see those character flaws, those behavior flaws in someone else, and it disgusts us, then the Lord will allow the light bulb to come on and we're like, oh my! And we realize it's something in our life that's just totally offensive and totally disgusting to the Lord. Now back to Jacob. See, Jacob had never run into anybody who was more smart or clever or more deceptive and manipulative than he was. See, the student finally met the teacher, the professor. You ever heard the saying, what goes around comes around? You reap what you sow. That's in the Bible, okay? You see that so many different times. Do not be deceived, the Lord will say. If you're planting seeds of manipulation or deception or anything like that, that's what you're going to eventually reap. It will come back to you. It's a promise. And now let's go into other things, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to be manipulation or deception in your own life. There could be other things that the Lord is trying to work out of your life. Things that you don't think is so bad or you're blinded to. You absolutely are like, oh, I'm not so bad. We all like to think we're not that bad, or the things that we're doing, they're not that bad, until the Lord brings someone along in our life and He shows us somebody amplified in that area, and all of a sudden, boom! And you're just like, that's me! Oh Lord, please forgive me! That is terrible! That's just horrible! Because you are so disgusted and you hate that trait and that other person so much, and God has just shown you a reflection of you in the mirror. You want to change. You are just asking the Lord, please help me, give me a new heart, Father. Please help me to change and be more like Jesus Christ. When God brings these people into our lives to help us, it's not because He's mad at us or anything. It's because He loves us. He's trying to change us to make us to become more loving, to become more like Jesus. He's done this to me in my life so many times. I can't even tell you. And it is true. You don't see your bad behaviors or your character flaws. You're just kind of like this goes, oh, I'm not so bad. But the Lord, over and over and over again, He has brought people into my life. And when He did, it was just boom! And I just couldn't believe how horrible I had been. Friends, after you go through this season of meeting yourself in a not so nice way, the changes that happen, that take effect are amazing, okay? And God wants to bless you. You will be amazed at how quickly the Lord will start blessing you in ways that you never would have imagined. In giving you favor and giving you His blessing and paving that way before you. It's what we all want, don't we? We want God's best, we want His goodness, and we want His favor. Don't fight God in the process. Open your arms and say, please change me, Lord, into the image of your Son, Jesus. I hope this helped you out. This is Tracy from Esther 414 Ministries.